So November 20th, 2025, Further Greedy Framer showed exactly how good she is at fabricating false testimonies against individuals. Whether she made the false testimony herself or gave it to someone else and prepped them for it, one of her Framer sisters, we know for a fact the crime and setting did not exist, and Further Greedy Framer was fully involved since as soon as it was known that as soon as it was known that there was a government informant, she was kicked out of the spokesperson's stand, clearly showing through facts and evidences that she was absolutely involved in it. She is a master fabricator and liar. She not only lied about that, the subsequent lies she pushed forward very aggressively, despite knowing very well that it was already confessed to being lies by her Framer sisters or her to the government informant. And then more lies that she aggressively pushed forward, only to be found out as being lies from phone conversations retrieved. Now, we know for a fact that Further Greedy Framer is a master fabricator and liar due to the fact that before all of this had even happened, at one time around the year 2019, Further Greedy Framer was telling Indian government that someone in U.S. law enforcement was trying to rape and murder her, due to which the entire Indian government had to get involved. Not only did they have to get involved, the Russians and the Chinese also had to get involved. And all these governments were involved because they thought that a person from U.S. law enforcement was trying to rape and murder Further Greedy Framer. Not only did they have to get involved, they had to let me know that my dad's younger sister was being raped and murdered by someone in U.S. law enforcement. That's the kind of false testimony Further Greedy Framer had made against someone in U.S. law enforcement, only for us to now find out that my dad, the Greedy Framer, calls that person who was supposed to be raping and murdering Further Greedy Framer, and yet she knows about it. All she says is, "Oh, that guy. Oh, you talked to him. He almost raped and murdered me." And then the next day, she would go back to talking to her brother, who talks to him every day. Like, literally, that's the situation we're looking at over here. So obviously, Further Greedy Framer is really good at fabricating false testimonies and lies. It's either that, due to which all these foreign governments had to contact me and tell me that my dad's younger sister was being raped and murdered by someone in U.S. law enforcement. It's either that she's really good at making false testimonies and lies, or that she really doesn't care that this person who was about to rape and murder her, her brother, my dad, the Greedy Framer, talks to all day and night long. So basically, a random person who's not related to her even remotely, basically. So basically, Further Greedy Framer is really good at fabricating false testimonies, making them sound really real and true, and exaggerating them to the point that she was able to prep her sister or make it herself to exaggerate a false testimony and lie and against me on November 20th, 2025, to the point that no news anchor on CNN was able to smile on live TV for days after November 20th, 2025. And on November 27th, you have someone like Governor Josh Green of Hawaii basically saying confusion is the enemy. We have to remove the confusion from here. He was basically talking about not the vaccine confusion, but the confusion around the false testimony that Further Greedy Framer and her Framer sisters had made, that caused so much mass panic and chaos throughout the entire government, and they wanted to remove the confusion in one way or another. So basically, yeah, this was the second time that Further Greedy Framer had created mass panic and chaos over a false testimony or lie that she's really good at exaggerating. Before this, she made one against someone in U.S. law enforcement, claiming that this person was trying to rape and murder her, due to which the Indian government basically had to go and lecture Joe Biden about how they were watching human rights concerns really carefully against the U.S. government, only for us to now find out that her brother, my dad, the Greedy Framer, talks to that person every single day, all day, from morning till night. Further Greedy Framer knows about it. She doesn't care. All she says is, "Oh, that person, oh, he tried to rape and murder me." That's all she says, which I think is hilarious, by the way. And these governments had to contact me to tell me that Further Greedy Framer was about to get raped and murdered by this individual. So yeah, Further Greedy Framer is really good at fabricating false testimonies, lies, and exaggerating them. We saw that in that incident where one government had to contact another one and lecture them on human rights, and we also saw it again on November 20th, 2025. We saw it again afterwards with the numerous lies she made that were already confessed to the government informant as being lies. We saw it again after that. After that, she basically tried to send in ads for incest on March 7th, 2026, three times at 10:41 a.m., 11:06 a.m., and 2:07 p.m. on March 7th, with a porn star named Sunny Leone's picture with her name Farah on it, even though on February 11th at 3:17 a.m., these individuals were told that this is an open advertisement for incest. And this disgusting old woman named Farah the Greedy Framer did not care, and she still tried to get me to she still sent these open advertisements for incest to me. And so basically, and then after that, she tries to get me to marry her daughter on March 9th, and then April 9th at 2:27 p.m., 2:47 p.m., and right now she's trying the same thing. But after these greedy tactics are caught and seen by the court, she goes back to making more lies against me very aggressively that are all caught from the phone conversations that had to be retrieved. So basically, for the Greedy Framer, yeah, this woman is really good at fabricating false testimonies and lies against individuals. Where one country, India, had to basically lecture America on human rights concerns and how they were forced to watch human rights concerns by the U.S. government very closely due to the false testimony that Farah the Greedy Framer had made, due to which these governments also had to contact me to let me know that my dad's younger sister was being raped and murdered by someone in U.S. law enforcement. Only for her brother, my dad, the Greedy Framer, to now talk to that individual all day and night long. And all she says to my dad, the Greedy Framer, is, "Oh, that man. Oh, yeah, he raped and murdered me almost." And so you talk to him. Well, anyways, go right ahead. She doesn't care about it one bit, clearly showing that she exaggerated the false testimony completely as much as possible, which she's really good at doing. November 20th, 2025, she exaggerated the false testimony against me to the point that no news anchor on CNN was able to smile on live TV for days after November 20th, despite the crime and setting not even existing, basically handed to them by the government to see how much of framers they were, and they were experts at exaggerating foul false testimonies, fabrications, and lies against individuals. Experts at it. You have to consider the fact that the crime and setting for November 20th did not even exist. It was handed to them, made up by the government and handed to them to try to check to see how good of exaggerators, framers, and liars they were. And for the Greedy Framer and her Framer sisters, we know for a fact Farah was fully involved, since she was removed from the spokesperson stand as soon as it was found out that she was involved. She was involved in that false testimony completely. It could not have been to the point that no news anchor on CNN would be able to smile on live TV for days after November 20th if she was not involved. She is a master fabricator, liar, exaggerator. We found that out with Indian government being forced to lecture Joe Biden on being forced to look at human rights abuses by the entire country very carefully because of the false testimony that Farah the Greedy Framer made to the Indian government about someone in U.S. law enforcement trying to rape and murder her. And then we saw it again on November 20th, 2025, once again. She literally changed foreign policy for two countries based on her false testimony, where the Indian government had to go and lecture Joe Biden on telling him that we're watching over your human rights abuses very carefully because of one testimony that Farah the Greedy Framer made. That's how good she is at exaggerating false testimonies, lies, and claims against individuals, only for us to now find out that her brother talks to that individual who was supposed to be raping and murdering her, and she has no problem with it. All she says is, "Oh, that individual, the one almost raped and murdered me. You talked to him, all right, well, then go right ahead." She doesn't care anymore because whatever the reason is, she doesn't care anymore. She already created the mass panic and chaos. Then she created mass panic and chaos again November 20th based on a crime and setting that did not even exist. Crime and setting that did not even exist. Farah the Greedy Framer was fully involved and had to be removed from the spokesperson stand as soon as the government informant was found out due to her involvement. And Farah the Greedy Framer was able to get that false testimony so well exaggerated and prepped out, whether she made it or she prepped someone else to make it, so well exaggerated based on a crime and setting that did not even exist, and she knew it was fabricated because she was fabricating it. She was so good at fabricating it that no news anchor on CNN was able to smile on live TV for days after November 20th. This is the person that law enforcement has given their talking points to. Yeah, So basically, the talking points would be as exaggerated and lied upon as you can ever imagine, since Farah the Greedy Framer has proven her expertise and such over and over again. And she's been found to be doing nothing but lying. I mean, if the person was raping and murdering her, as the Indian government was forced to lecture Joe Biden on closely watching human rights abuses, then why is her brother, my dad, the Greedy Framer, talking to this individual all day, night long, every single day? And why does she not have a problem with it? She just says, "Oh, that individual that raped and murdered me. Oh, almost. Well, yeah, go right ahead, talk to him." And then November 20th, 2025, you find out again that she's a master at fabricating and lying and making false testimonies against individuals. Then again, early March 2026, we find out again she's a master at making lies, aggressively pushing them forward very aggressively. And then those were all actually already confessed to the government informant as being complete and total lies, by the way. And then after that, she tries greedy tactics of sending me porn star's picture named Sunny Leone 3 times on March 7, 2026. Despite being told on February 11, 3:17 a.m. that this is an open advertisement for incest, only because she had moved from extreme envy to extreme greed, to trying to get that money in any way, shape, or form possible. And then she tries to get me married to her daughter on March 9th and April 9th. April 9th was at 2:27 p.m. and 2:47 p.m. And the porn star's picture on March 7th was at 10:41 a.m., 11:06 a.m., and 2:07 p.m. Basically, trying greed, extreme greed after extreme envy, despite knowing that what she was doing was absolutely wrong. Then she tried more lies against me right after the greedy part failed, to try to get me to try to get my brain savant enviously locked up. We're using more lies that were phone conversations had to be retrieved, and we find out that those were all complete and total lies again. Yes, that Farah the Greedy Framer, she's been given all these talking points by law enforcement. The thing that the courts have to understand is the fact that these tactics are basically being used by law enforcement for one reason and one reason only. Law enforcement wants to make sure that I am not able to use my brain savant. That is what the story is mainly all about. And in order to disprove that story and that claim by me, all law enforcement has to do is do a simple 30-minute brain savant test where they let go of my brain savant for only 30 minutes, something that law enforcement refuses to do to help save their life. And I'll tell you exactly why law enforcement refuses to do this. Law enforcement cannot do a brain savant test to help save their life due to the fact that everyone believes that artificial intelligence is telling the truth from their 1-minute long brain savant test scans. Not only that, I cannot be psychic, due to which I know what artificial intelligence is saying about my brain savant, which means that I'm telling the truth about being a triple brain savant, mainly having photographic memory, innovation, and focusing, and the fact that my brain savant powers increase over time. Law enforcement knows about these facts. Law enforcement does not wish to do a brain savant test for 30 minutes. The main reason is due to their sex games. Law enforcement is basically addicted to sex, and they like running sex games. They've been running sex games with Uncle Joey's in-laws since the year 2001, which would make you think, well, then how is this investigation being run? This investigation is basically run around sex and money, until law enforcement found out about my brain savant, after which time law enforcement just wanted to enviously lock up my brain savant and then murder me using false testimonies like the wedding incident, which was basically a confession from their point, since I would not be present at that wedding, nor would anyone invite me and my mother to tell us about any wedding incidents. Which would basically mean that law enforcement covered over and committed that crime, whatever it might be. And their BFFs like Assad are a great prime example of what kind of BFFs they are. They have, since the people like Assad would be involved in the wedding incident crime and never questioned about a single thing ever. Law enforcement never cared. They only care about their sex games. They only care about their money fraud. And they care about me due to extreme envy, and they want to lock up my brain savant and basically murder me using false testimonies, which have all failed one after the other. Basically, law enforcement's been so basically they told these girls about my brain savant, and they had these girls follow me around, even though I never told a single person about it. I never told anyone about my brain savant until August 25th, 2023, after which time I won my court case and I told law enforcement straight out, I know you have a brain scanner. I know you know about my brain savant. I want to study. I want to study now. Law enforcement at that time basically tried to frame me for a crime, but before they did that, they basically went to the ultra rich, like how they went to everyone else, and law enforcement hoped to get more people to basically laugh at me and say bad things about me. They are very, yeah, they're very like, I don't know, like those evil people from the movies anyways. So basically that's what law enforcement was trying to do. The ultra rich acted the exact opposite of what law enforcement wanted them to act like. Instead, the ultra rich found out about my history, the fact that law enforcement was continuously trying to frame me, the fact that law enforcement has done nothing but run sex schemes and money fraud since 2001 with Uncle Joey's in-laws, the fact that ever since I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, all I've done is work hard with my mother. And if I was ever present in a setting during the war where anyone could have said anything bad around me, it would only be as a child less than not even mentally mature enough yet, and only because my mother would be working in fast food restaurants and nowhere else where anyone could watch me for free. And my mother would obviously not be present there, and also the fact that after I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, I was never present anywhere, whether it was good or bad place, because I could not afford to do so, clearly shown from the wedding incident, which I told law enforcement right there and right then, I was not present there because I could not afford to do so. But if that was a crime, sir, you have just confessed to a crime you covered over and committed. I told that to law enforcement in 2023. Well, law enforcement basically went to the ultra rich, hoping that the ultra rich would be on their side in trying to degrade me or make fun of me or something like that. Instead, the ultra rich found out about my history, and the ultra rich in America basically welcome people from poor backgrounds, very much so. And when they found out that artificial intelligence had marked my brain savant as being extremely rare and profitable, and I was a triple savant in all of this, the ultra rich basically they wanted my brain savant to be freed, and secretly they were helping me out. They basically found out that I was basically like a slave since the age of 11, tortured almost every single day with mental torture drugs, energy weapon torture tools, and yeah. So the ultra rich found out about this, and they basically found out about my history, the fact that ever since I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, all I've done in life is work hard with my mother and nothing else. And my mother's never uttered one word considered bad, racist in any way, shape, or form, and that all law enforcement, all of their friends or their BFFs are people that they run sex schemes and money fraud with, but they're not good individuals. They would be people like Assad. And although, yeah, the only thing I'd say are things related to this case, that he'd be involved in the wedding incident, he'd know about whatever Bush actor I was saying in the year 2019, and he would know about a lot more, and law enforcement wouldn't care. They would never care, like how they never cared about what my dad, the greedy framer, was doing in the year 2011, recruiting people with sermons on mass murdering innocent human beings, joining terror groups, and law enforcement basically just tipped him off instead of investigating it. Law enforcement does not care about these things. They only care about their sex schemes and money fraud. So basically, law enforcement went over to, so basically, before I get to that, in 2011, my dad was found by law enforcement as giving sermons from his house to commit mass murder, and giving sermons to large groups of people to go out there, commit mass murders, join terror groups, and do things of that sort of nature every single day. One day he suddenly just stopped, due to which I realized that he was tipped off by someone, since people don't just change overnight. And now I know exactly who he was tipped off by: law enforcement. This is the kind of stuff they do. I know them really well. So basically, the ultra rich were told about my history and the fact that ever since I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity in life, all I've done is work hard with my mother, later on to be found out as being a triple savant with innovation, photographic memory, and focusing. And my brain savant powers increase over time with my brain savant fully locked up right now. But if you look at April 22nd, these ears were all the way on the back of my head, because law enforcement had finally unlocked my brain savant to test it out, only because they ran their mouth for so long that the government and people like senators and stuff got sick and tired of it. They were just like, is this motive real or not? Because we just don't know. Because like every single person you bring in says that his motive doesn't even exist. His brain savant doesn't even exist. So we need to see it, test it out. Like, can you do it? And law enforcement obviously said no, but they were just like, you're going to have to do it. We don't care what you think. We don't know if his motive is real or not. He claims that you law enforcement have done everything because of his brain savant. That kind of does look true, since all you've done since 2001 is run sex schemes and money fraud. Well, if his brain savant doesn't exist, then his entire motive against you doesn't exist. But it clearly looks like his brain savant doesn't exist, since everyone you bring over says it doesn't exist. So you're gonna have to do a test. So law enforcement had to do a test on April 22nd. It wasn't a real test, since they locked up my air drugging. They used air drugging to lock up my brain, but they let the energy weapon go, because of which my ears were able to go back, and my brain savant, instead of being like this, it was able to go like that. But the thing about it is, yeah, that's what basically happened. So yeah. So basically, that's what the entire case was all about. Law enforcement was fighting because artificial intelligence had marked my brain savant as being the most rare and profitable in the world, and law enforcement was basically fighting to make sure that my brain savant could not be used. And their entire history since 2001 is running sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws, money fraud later on, both of which are still going on this day, till this very day today. And my history has been that ever since I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, all I've done is work hard with my mother in life. And as a child, not as an adult, as a child, ever since I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity, and even if I was present anywhere before then, it would only be around law enforcement's BFFs who would he could have said something bad around me, not do like what my dad, the greedy framer, was doing in 2011. And law enforcement never cared a thing about it then, because law enforcement was running their sex schemes with Uncle Joey's in-laws since 2001, followed by money fraud. And law enforcement never cared a thing about it or anything at all. Only for law enforcement to try to frame me for as much things as possible as soon as finding out about my brain savant. So law enforcement basically around the year 2023 went to the ultra rich, hoping that they get more support in trying to degrade me or something. But ultra rich acted the exact opposite, and they found out about my entire history, that I've been working hard with my mother since I gained a slight bit of mental maturity as child. And if I was a child before then during the war, only about an 11-year-old child, and if I was around anyone that could have said anything bad around me, it would only be one of law enforcement's own BFFs, and only till I would gain enough mental maturity as a child so I could be left at home alone, like how my mother said on February 15 at 8:30 p.m. Never for me to ever again be in any settings where anything even remotely considered good or bad could be said around me, but instead facts and evidence has showed that all I did in life after gaining the slightest bit of mental maturity was work hard in life, whereas law enforcement, all they did was run sex scenes with Uncle Joey's in-laws since 2001, followed by money fraud, both of which are being run till this very day today. And their BFFs consists of people like Assad, who are ironically narrating in a trial where they themselves were criminals who committed crimes like the wedding incident. If it was anything bad, then Assad would definitely be involved in it. Not only that, he would also know about everything Bushra Akhtar said in the year 2019, never to care a thing about it, or anything else that I could not even know about, Assad would know about. And so Ultra Rich basically found out about this fact, and the fact that I've done nothing my entire life, unlike these adults like Assad, or these adults like the ones in law enforcement who've been committing crimes, covering over them, doing bad things throughout the entire time since 2001 till this very day today. And I have done absolutely nothing but work hard with my mother since the moment I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, and my mother's never uttered one bad word considered bad her entire life. The ultra rich were basically told everything, and law enforcement was hoping that the ultra rich would help them degrade me or do something against me. But when the facts came out, they found out that basically law enforcement were the criminals in this case. Not only that, law enforcement's money is still being transferred right now as we speak. Their sex schemes that started in 2001 with Uncle Joey's in-laws still being run right now as we speak. So basically, they looked at the facts and evidences, and the fact that I was never even remotely present in any settings, either good or bad since the moment I gained the slightest bit of mental maturity as a child, only because my mother no longer needed me adult supervised anymore while working at fast food restaurants. And they also found out that law enforcement's obsession with me only started after they found out about me being a triple brain savant and having all these powers, and the fact that my brain savant powers increase over time, proven November 14, 2025. So, and they found out that I've been literally a slave since I was an 11-year-old child, tortured, mental torture, drugs all day, every day, and they would use energy weapon torture tools on me all day, every day since I was an 11-year-old child. Law enforcement was hoping that Ultra Rich would be on their side and take their side and try to degrade me or something, when in fact, what ended up happening was the ultra rich in America actually welcomed people with poor backgrounds and the kind of story that I had, and they found out that artificial intelligence had marked my brain savant as being incredibly rare and profitable, and I had a really high chance of being a part of the ultra rich class. To their surprise, ultra rich actually started to secretly help me out, and they really helped me out a lot. Every single one of them did, and I'm very appreciative of all their help. But that was a really funny story that basically happened, where law enforcement, what happened was, so August 9th, 2022, I find out about my brain savant, and it was like a third arm came out of my body for like 6 hours on that flight. Basically, photographic memory, innovation, focusing, everything. I was able to use it. So basically, after that, obviously, when you find out something like that, two things you do. One thing is you don't tell anyone about it, which I didn't. And the other thing you do is you plan out your life. So obviously, if you have powers like those, you're not going to daydream about being a carpenter. Obviously, I was daydreaming about being ultra rich, and law enforcement had a brain scanner that I didn't know about. So basically, law enforcement knew that I was always like daydreaming about being ultra rich. Obviously, anyone would with these kind of powers, especially since they increase in power over time, which the artificial intelligence report from November 14, 2025, and also the May 10, 2026 report will prove easily. But the thing is, law enforcement found out that I was daydreaming about being ultra rich the entire time, from like August 9, 2022 to like for the entire year till July 1st, 2023, when I found out that that they had a brain scanner, obviously. So law enforcement basically went to ultra rich to try to get people to like laugh at me and degrade me. But instead, what ended up happening was the ultra rich actually came on my side, and they secretly started to help me out, which I really appreciate, very much so. But I thought that was really funny. But anyways, after after July 1st, 2023, obviously I knew they had a brain scanner. They knew themselves. I never told a single person about it. Obviously, no one would. If you have a lottery ticket, are you going to tell someone till you cash it out, put it in your bank account? Obviously not. You're not going to tell anyone. You're going to keep it a secret. It's your secret. If you tell anyone, you get people like Miss Deb enviously trying to lock up my brain savant, only to now try to get me married to her daughter. For the greedy framer, enviously trying to lock up my brain savant, only to now try to get me married to her daughter. You have people like my dad, the greedy framer, enviously trying to lock up my brain savant, and then trying all these disgusting things like getting me to commit incest with this big fat ugly old sister, like fire the greedy framer, offering the greedy framer. Yeah. And so people try all these things to like try to hurt you, so your money can't go to you or anyone you love, excuse me, or try to greedily get that money when they see that they failed in doing so. So obviously you don't tell anyone until you cash out the money you put in your bank account, and then you find ways of fighting people that try to come after your money. Obviously, so I didn't tell anyone. So after July 1st, 2023, I saw all these people at like Target stores that obviously knew they would stop right in front of me to try to see if I was admiring their faces or not. They knew. And I told law enforcement, like, I didn't tell them then because I was kind of scared that, like, I was kind of thinking, like, what if there is no brain scanner? But after like a couple months, it's too obvious. You've been the loser your entire life. They know. There is a brain scanner. So August 25th, 2023, I won my case, and I told them straight out. I was like, look, I'm a triple savant. I know you know, and I know you purposely locking up my brain to inhibit me from being able to use my brain savant. I told law enforcement straight out, right there and right then. And then they started to make all these false testimonies against me, like the wedding incident that I couldn't afford to be in the first place. But they try to do all these cheesy things, like try to go to Ultra Rich and try to get them to make fun of me or something. But it was like the exact opposite of what they thought would happen. Ultra Rich actually started helping me out, and they secretly started to help me out in every way they could. And I really appreciate their help. But yeah, and so basically right now, the thing I made the video about is the fact that inhibiting someone from being able to study. So before we even start that, there's certain things that law enforcement would never tell anyone. Okay, they would never tell anyone, because they're scared that the truth would come out. Obviously, it's part of their guilt, so they're not going to tell anyone. Basically, artificial intelligence reports will prove to you that I'm telling the truth. August 9, 2022 will prove that I have photographic memory, innovation, and focusing. Focusing basically means I could use my brain savant for long hours. Focusing basically makes my brain like a robot's brain. Basically, I could, like, not only can I use it for long hours without needing a single second's break, but also the fact that I could block out all other parts of the brain, like parts for desire and things. I could just crush it like normal human beings cannot, regardless of how much dopamine or hormones might be in there. Because focusing is part of my brain savant, I could just crush those other parts and basically make it like a robot. I could do it like for hours and hours without my brain tiring even a little bit. So basically, yeah, August 9, 2022, that's what we found out. And then April 22nd, 2025, we found out that my ears, which are locked right now, could go all the way to the back of my head, and that gives me superhuman power. So instead of being like this, when the ear jugging is removed, like August 9, 2022, it's already superhuman as is, but as it happened on April 22nd, 2025, when the ears are unlocked, it becomes even more superhuman, because then my brain can interlock together. And that basically makes it hundreds and thousands of times more powerful than any normal human being can ever imagine having. And if I use energy drinks on top of that, like we saw on June 5th, 2025, then I can even bypass their torture tools to getting it to be starting to touch each other, and I could use my brain savant that way. Also, it increases over time, as we found out November 14th, 2025, and also May 10th, 2026. So it's like a money-making machine. It's like, I like to say, it's like you just come up with ideas and you work on them using photographic memory, and then you can memorize entire textbooks in less than a day's time. Not only can I do it, I love doing it. Between October 2019 and July 1st, 2023, all I did was stare into a textbook all day long from morning till night. Till July 1st, 2023, law enforcement inhibited me from being able to stare into textbooks, because in mid-June 2023, they did a test and they found out my powers were increasing, and they thought that it was because I was staring into a textbook all day long. And so basically, yeah, that's what happened. And then, so the reason I'm making this video is to let the government know that the human rights are being raised around the world, and it has nothing to do with me being tortured. It has nothing to do with me being washed. You can make excuses for that, like November 20th was an excuse for that. The lies after that was an excuse for that. Using narrators to make their point are an excuse for that. At the end of the day, obviously the truth's going to come out. November 20th was a lie. The subsequent statements were lies. Narrators are all hell-bent. Narrators are all motivated by, they're all motivated by greed and extreme envy, since Miss Deb and Farah the Greedy Framer are now trying to greedily get me married to their daughters. And the other one, like Assad and law enforcement, are more involved in any crime than I could ever be in my life. So at the end of the day, the truth might come out, but you can make excuses. What I mean for everything else, what you cannot make an excuse for is inhibiting someone from being able to study. And even in the Middle Ages, there's no human being that was ever inhibited from being able to study. You could not lock someone up just to inhibit them from being able to study. My brain savant's locked up. My ears are locked up, and they're using severe ear drugging on me just so that I cannot study. And it's my natural habitat. From October 2019 till July 1st, 2023, all I did was study from morning till night. I stared into a textbook, but they didn't let me study using severe amnesia drugs, but that's what I like doing. They don't let me do it anymore due to extreme envy. Excuse me. They found out that my brain savant powers increase over time, and they thought that it was because I stared into a textbook. Yes, it's true. That increases the powers even more if I'm in my natural habitat, but that does not give someone the right to inhibit me from being able to study, and that's what law enforcement's been doing. The reason I'm making this video is to let the government know that the human rights concerns being raised in this country and abroad is only because I'm being inhibited from being able to study. If my brain savant was unlocked, air drugging was lowered, and I was allowed to study, and the effects of energy drinks was not lowered due to extreme envy so that I couldn't study, basically all the human rights concerns would be removed, and the government would not have to deal with any more human rights concerns, because then I would be able to study. Law enforcement has not even done a 30-minute brain savant test. Basically because of the fact that the reason they want to inhibit me from being able to study is due to the fact that everything that they've done is due to their sex addiction or trying to accumulate money for themselves or their friends. The reason law enforcement does not want to do a 30-minute brain savant test, despite the fact that it disproves their guilt at the end of the 30 minutes, whether what artificial intelligence has claimed about my brain savant being exceptional, or if I'm a nothing burger, at the end of the 30 minutes, law enforcement wins, since they've proven that everything that they're doing with fabricating false testimonies is not just to inhibit my brain savant from being able to be seen performing out in the open for 30 minutes. If, let's say, I'm anything less than Kim Peek, Rain Man, at the end of the 30-minute brain savant test, law enforcement wins right there and then, because my entire motive against law enforcement is the fact that they've done everything since day one only due to extreme envy of my brain savant. So if I get my brain savant powers and I can study, then human rights concerns are removed. And if law enforcement is forced to do a 30-minute brain savant test, then basically, yeah, if they're forced to do a 30-minute brain savant test, then their guilt is removed as well, because then they'll prove to the entire world that they're not doing everything, including fabricating false testimonies against me, due to extreme envy of not being able to see my brain savant perform out in the open for 30 minutes, since the 1-minute brain savant test, artificial intelligence has already said what would happen at the end of the 30 minutes. Even if that were true, and what artificial intelligence has said, and I have said that artificial intelligence obviously said, since I'm not psychic and I don't know what the report says, but if I know what the report says, then I'm telling the truth. Even if that happens at the end of the 30 minutes, law enforcement still wins 30-minute brain savant test, due to the fact that they have proven in front of the entire world that everything that they've done is not done to fabricate false testimony so that my brain savant could not be seen performing out in the open for 30 minutes due to extreme envy of it. And so basically, yeah, 30-minute brain savant test and my brain savant being inhibited is only due to law enforcement sex scheme addiction, to the point that yesterday was June 20th and they had 2 advertisements. One for M&T Bank, it said, "Let's work together." The next advertisement right after that one, Chevrolet, "Let's ride together." Law enforcement has become so desperate due to getting rejected from their sex schemes and being forced to use girls from their own law enforcement to make up for the girls that are not listening to them, that they're literally begging me just yesterday, June 20th, to help them with their sex schemes, to help them run after these girls, something I've never done my entire life, and I have absolutely it would not be something I would ever do. And the only response that I have to give to law enforcement when they ask me to help them with their sex schemes is, "Get the heck off my face." Okay, I'm sorry for saying it that way, but it's true. It's not something I do or have interest in, nor do I want to get any kind of lawsuits on me. I just want to be able to study is all I'm trying to do. That's all I'm interested in doing. No one has the right, I don't think so, and inhibiting another individual from being able to study, and a 30-minute brain savant test would disprove law enforcement's guilt, since it would prove to the entire world whether what artificial intelligence has said is true about my brain savant. And since I'm not psychic enough to know what artificial intelligence has said about it in the 1-minute test, I'm obviously telling the truth. But even if that occurs at the end of the 30-minute test, law enforcement still is disproven from their guilt, since they've proven in front of the entire world that that everything that they're doing is not being done to inhibit me from being able to use my brain savant. Every single thing that law enforcement has ever done has been for sex, money, or extreme envy of locking up my brain savant and trying to falsify testimony against me to try to murder me. Well, adults that would be involved in everything, like Assad, would be roaming around freely, and when they'd be found guilty, they would literally just simply pack up their stuff and leave. Their sex addiction is to the point that yesterday, June 20th, law enforcement was asking me to help them run after these girls with 2 ads: M&T Bank, let's work together, followed by Chevrolet, let's ride together, only because law enforcement has been rejected by these girls for so long that they've been forced to use girls from their own law enforcement, and they've been rejected from these girls for so long that they want me to help them with their sex addiction of being able to run after these girls. If you don't believe me, ask law enforcement yourselves if they were planning on doing this yesterday, June 20th, or not. And they absolutely were, which proves beyond a reasonable doubt that everything that law enforcement is doing is only being done due to extreme envy, greed, and due to their sex addiction, and their desire to get money, either from fraud or to try to get me to give them illegal assurances of money, like how they were doing with the Truist Bank ad. On June 19th, literally just 2 days ago, at 4:27 p.m., to try to get me to give them illegal assurances of money before my brain savant could get freed. Every single thing that law enforcement has done is done due to extreme greed, envy, or their sex addiction, or things of that sort of nature. To the point that their sex addiction and desperation has come to a point where just yesterday, June 20th, they're begging me to help them with the M&T Bank saying, let's work together, and then the Chevrolet ad saying, let's ride together, to try to get me to help them with their sex addiction of running after these girls. They try to copy me with they're weirdos, try to go around telling people that they're autistic, also that they lack social skills. Also, they would try to dress up like me, and all these things. Like, they would even wear glasses 24/7. Even though I don't wear glasses, I would never would. Thing about being like me is we try to not look like that as much as possible. But the thing about people like me is we don't do bad things like that. And running after someone's daughter, whom is you're not gonna marry, and you're only trying to use by telling her lies, like they would tell these girls lies, like they would be like, such and such is like the CEO of a company, when in fact the person would be like literally getting fired from their work like every year or something like that. And like they would like make up all these lies about people to try to run after these girls. And like, yeah, it's just not right. And like this level of desperation, like I do not do this. If you talk to anyone from my high school, they will tell you that I'm not like that at all. It's such a weirdo thing to do, to be running after girls all day long. All I want is my ability to be able to study. And I think that what law enforcement was trying to do yesterday, trying to get me involved in their sex schemes, is absolutely disgusting. Anyways, that's all I'm going to say about that. But the fact of the matter is, this is all that law enforcement has pretty much done since the year 2001. Run sex schemes with Uncle Joy's in-laws that are still being run right now, along with money fraud that's still being run right now. And the thing that is really raising all the human rights concerns around the world, and even in this country, is the fact that I'm being inhibited from being able to study by locking up my brain savant, using air drugging, doing everything possible to inhibit me from being able to study. And that's raising human rights concerns all over the world and this country. If I was just given my brain savant powers, everything would be fine, and there would be no one complaining about anything. And yeah, I just need my brain savant powers to be able to study, since it's raising human rights concerns. And even in the Middle Ages, medieval era of human history, it's literally never happened where someone's literally jailed and inhibited from being able to study, with that being the main motive behind everything that's being done. That's all I had to say. Thank you.